You're listening to the Teach Better Talk podcast featuring expert educators eager to share progressive tactics to reach more students. Teach Better Talk is created by teachers and fueled by passion. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 227 of Teach Better Talk. My name is Ray Hewart, and as always, I'm with that other guy that keeps showing up, even though we keep giving him the wrong time for the podcast, Mr. Jeffrey Gargis. How are you, Jeff?
I'm good. I think that's my favorite one yet. That was a good one.
Yo, see, it only took me 227 episodes to come up with something snarky, don't you think?
I just keep popping back in. You just can't wait, that was the first snarky thing? Really?
Well, everything else I've shared about you was like the nicest comments. I usually like butter you up and usually blush. And this was the first one that I'm like, I'm going to add some spunk to this one.
You guys hearing this? Nonsense? No, there's no one over there. I'm just talking like
guys, I hope you're watching on YouTube.
It's my fake in-studio audience. I'm like, are you guys like what? The production team over here. No, that was great.
If you can go to YouTube, the Teach Better YouTube, and you can see like Jeff and I on camera talking for our beginning. And that was quite good because it did look like you had like an in-studio audience. But they weren't like clapping or booing. So that you need to turn them up a little bit.
So, I don't know. Can you guys give us a little something? And that'll go really well.
There we go.
So,
yeah.
I'm doing well.
Hey, Jeff, someday we're going to be in like some high-end, fancy podcasting studio where we can bring in members of the Teach Better family to be like in audience members. I see this. But for right now, we're just both in our basement.
Are you picturing like our podcast becoming basically like a Tonight Show? But
of course. Wait,
it.
Is that not what you're assuming this is? That's what I thought we were working towards.
I'm 1,000,000% on board with this idea.
Yes.
I am loving it.
Good. I'm glad. I was a little nervous there. Otherwise, I have to get another host.
That wasn't the vision I had. The vision I had was that I was just kind of hoping for it to be done at this point and be over. I was like, is 227 enough? Can we call it quits? Do I have to keep doing this? But here we are.
How about like 2:30? We can be done at 2:30, don't you think?
No. Anyway, I do want to... I want to jump into this episode because it is a little bit longer episode. I asked a bunch of follow-up questions because I love this guest.
No, really good questions.
Really good questions. Don't get me wrong. This is really good stuff. I think a really important thing for everyone to hear. But it's a little bit longer than normal, so I wanted to dive right in. But I wanted to highlight a review because those of you who leave us reviews on places, primarily Apple Podcast, I hope you realize that does a lot of good for us as the show, but also then allows us to then be seen by more, which then shares these stories with more people and therefore impacts more lives and impacts more students' lives, and that's the goal of all of this. So we appreciate these reviews, so we want to keep shouting out people. So do you want to shout this one out or you want me to? Do you have it up?
Go crazy, boss. You're in charge.
So this one comes from Got Tech Ed. Pretty sure I know who that awesome person is. But they say, this podcast and the Educational Collective is one of my favorites in the world of education, authentic in every way. I listen to learn, and I often find myself laughing at the banter between Ray and Jeff. This podcast should be on every teacher's podcast player. And then in all caps, respect.
Respect. So I like that.
So somebody likes our banter.
You know what? It's not me, but somebody does. You're right. And that review also ended with a hashtag Team Ray, right? Is that what happened?
No,
Does it say?
No.
At the end?
Did not.
Are you sure?
No.
Double check, Jeff. Double check.
It ended with a hashtag Team Ray the same way that Britney's shirt somehow said hashtag Team Ray, even though it was a hashtag Team Jeff. Anyway.
Okay, we'll get to that later in the episode.
This episode, Britney Wolf, you may know her if you're on our website at all. She's one of our speakers in our Teach Better Speakers Network. And we love Britney. She's a huge advocate for the Tourette's community. As someone who was diagnosed with it when she was very young, she does such an awesome job with that. She creates YouTube videos and has been doing that for a while. We touch on that. We dive into a little bit about, just learn a little bit more about Tourette's. I think we can never continue. We should never stop learning about these things. We never know enough about what other people are going through. And I think she provides some really great advice from that viewpoint. That's why we love having her on the Speakers Network. We love chatting with her. She was an awesome speaker last year at the Teach Better Conference, which we were just talking about, like was popping up on our feed again this weekend. So reminded of that, and just super excited to have her on the show. Ray, I know you're a fan. What anything pop out that we need to like really focus on other than her pure awesomeness?
Okay, well, her pure awesomeness is just going to come through whether you are looking for it or not. Yes. However, I do want to say because she's on our speakers network, which I know we talk about later, that means that she works with students, she works with teachers. So if you're listening to this right now and you have a conference in mind that you think Britney would be a good fit for, or you want to bring her in to like hype up some of your teachers or talk to some students, like literally this is what she does, guys. And she's so good, so relatable. I always tell her she's like just so human. Yes. She's so approachable talking about this stuff. So I hope you enjoy this, but I also hope you keep her in mind for any events in the future that you think that she'd be a good fit for, because she is powerful. This is a powerful woman. I'm just saying.
And with that, let's get in episode 227 with Britney Wolf.
Hey everyone, I am so glad that you're enjoying the episode so far, and I just want to give a quick shout out to all the speakers a part of the Teach Better Speakers Network. Our Speakers Network is continuously growing to offer all of our network the most diverse lineup of educators humanly possible to serve your needs, whether it be in the classroom or just coaching your coaches. You can see the full list of the speakers a part of the Teach Better Speakers Network at teachbetter.com/speakers network. We so appreciate these amazing educators who continue to share their insights, and it's a great spot to head over to if you are looking to connect with other educators and or bring someone in with your staff to motivate and talk about best practices. Head over to teachbetter.com/speakers network for the full list. Let's get back to the episode.
All right, we're here and we are chatting with Britney Wolf. And Britney, it's so awesome to have you on the podcast. I'm super excited. I've known you for a little while. We've been working with you for a little while as well. You're on our speakers network. I know both you and your husband and a lot of your family, and it's so awesome to watch you like just continue to grow and do all the amazing things that you're doing. So this is super exciting. Finally getting you on the podcast. Before we dive too much into everything you've got going on and your story, how are you feeling right now?
I am feeling pretty good, you know. I am excited to be a part of the podcast. I'm excited to be talking to you and Ray. I'm good. How are you guys?
I am so glad you're here. I know, Jeff, I know that you've been close to Britney forever, but I have to tell you, Britney, I have been talking about being a fan of you for so long that I want to know, Jeff, how do we get 227 episodes in and not have Britney? I don't understand.
I don't know, but before we go any further, I'd really love for Britney to share with our audience what shirt she's wearing right now.
Oh boy! Oh boy!
Just out of curiosity.
It's probably not a question you ask most of your guests, but
I was gonna say, Britney, do you want to know what shirt I have on right now? Should we just talk about clothing?
Well, I'm pretty sure everyone knows your shirt's probably something black.
Ha ha ha! It is. Thank you.
See.
I am wearing my Team Jeff shirt.
Oh, hashtag Team Jeff.
Hashtag he paid you to wear that. You guys all know that Jeff called Britney 10 minutes before the podcast and was like, dude, I put a shirt in your mailbox. If you could please wear that, I'd super appreciate it, man. That's what happened. That's what happened.
Hey, you know what? She did it, and that's all that matters.
It's okay. Britney, I'm not going to take it offensively because I've been a Britney fan for so long that if you want to pretend to be Team Jeff just to make him feel good, I'm not going to worry about it because I know you are just a really good person. You probably have a Team Ray shirt underneath and just didn't want to confess that to the audience, and that's okay.
All right. Yeah. You caught me.
Win-win. I love it. Well, Britney, I do want to have our audience learn a little bit more about you outside of, your clothing choices and how you used to be friends with Jeff and now you really love me. So would you mind sharing a little bit, describing yourself? If somebody came up and said, hey, Britney, what do you do? What would be your typical response?
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for all those nice words. It's still really weird for me to hear anybody tell me that they're a fan of me. So I'm still getting used to that kind of thing. I would say that if I would tell people what I do, aside from work, so I currently work for Nestle full time. So I do some speaking for the Teach Better Speakers Network, also kind of on the side as well. But I am a Tourette Syndrome advocate through and through. It's rooted deep into my heart. I was diagnosed when I was 7. I wouldn't tell anybody that I am Tourette's, and that's who I am by any means. I am so much more than whatever Tourette's does to me. But I am a person that wants to let people know that they're not alone and that somebody is fighting for them, because I'm living with this misunderstood disorder that so many people think is a joke. And so many people have this misunderstanding that we can't do things. So I'm just out here. I would like to think that people would consider me to be a fighter and a strong person and a caring person, especially when it comes to this disorder and everything that comes along with it.
One of the things that you've done, to advocate and to bring awareness there is that, and I can't remember how many years ago it was, so you'll have to correct me on that, but 3, 4, 5 years ago now, has it been? It seems like that you've been making videos. Has it been that long, or am I going too far back?
No, I think you are right. I think it's at least 3 to 4 videos, 3 to 4 years.
Many more videos. And you started making videos on your YouTube channel, and so Ray mentioned that I've known you for a little while, but I knew your husband more than I knew you, and I knew him through his brother and a string of friends there. And honestly, I really started to get to know you more when you started putting out the videos and watching the videos and shooting you messages saying that it was great work that you were doing, stuff like that. And then you got approached by a college that wanted you to come speak to their soon-to-be doctors. And your husband recommended that you talk with me prior to go there because you weren't sure where to go. And that kind of really got us talking, but we started really having more frequent conversations that led to you actually coming and speaking at the Teach Better conference and then joining the network. And that's actually led to me going, hey, Ray, you're going to love this girl. And then Ray met you and said, she's mine. So tell us a little bit about the YouTube channel and what your videos are.
So my YouTube channel, it's centered around my life with Tourette Syndrome. So I started it, like you said, 3 or 4 years ago. You could totally tell, I'm embarrassed to even go back and look at that first video, because you can tell how unsure and shy I was. And I probably sped talked my way through it the whole time. I decided a long time ago, I kept telling my husband, I want to make videos about Tourette Syndrome. I want to make these videos. I want to make this YouTube channel. And him being the most supportive person on the planet, like he is, he just said, he's like, all right, well then just do it. And one night I decided, I basically made this first video. I introduced myself, talked about how I had Tourette Syndrome, how I was diagnosed when I was 7. And I was facing a lot of fears by putting my life out there for the internet, because as we all know, people are very brave behind a keyboard. And when you have something like Tourette Syndrome, it's easy to make fun of. So I hovered over that publish button for quite some time. And I published it and I went to sleep. And the next day, my husband woke me up and he's like, you need to get online and see all these comments that everybody's making. They're loving your first video. And that motivated me. I couldn't believe all this nice feedback. Jeff, you reached out to me at that point when I posted it. And that was crazy to me. People that I never even actually spoke to a lot, or that people that I grew up with that I thought would forget that I even had it, let alone existed, were sharing it and saying these nice words. And so that made me want to make more. And so eventually I started, upgrading some stuff and making my videos better. And so I just started really getting more in depth about my life with Tourette Syndrome. And then some videos I'm just talking about other topics, just revolving around Tourette Syndrome. So people ask me if I can cover, my life in school or my life in college and working with Tourette Syndrome. So that evolved into that, where I asked people what they wanted me to talk about, what they wanted to see more of. And then it evolved into, I did a video with my mom. I did 2 videos with my husband, and a lot of people connected with that, because that was a fear of mine and of a lot of people, where I felt that nobody was going to love me through something like this. And that's not something that I made vocal to a lot of people growing up, but it was a fear of mine, because I know myself, how is anybody going to live with me, lay in bed with me when I can't sit still and love me too? And so then it evolved. Now I'm at this other aspect where now I'm bringing other people with Tourette Syndrome onto the podcast, because I'm starting to think about it, my story is my story and it's unique. Every single person with Tourette syndrome is different. I want to bring those other stories in so people get a more well-rounded view of what Tourette syndrome is, those different levels of it, what it can be like for that person, what it's like for them in school if they're still in school, or what it was like for them if they have jobs, how they cope with it. Because we're all different. And so I think in showcasing not just my story is so much more helpful than them just listening to my point of view over and over again.
Well, first off, let me just say, because he's probably listening, so I'm going to give him a shout out. But the meme where there's there's a lot of different memes where it's like, find you somebody that looks at whatever like this person. I'm going to tell you right now, you need to find yourself someone who looks at you the way Scott looks at Britney. Because you guys are adorable, and the love there is so crazy and awesome to watch. And he's such a good guy. I love the episodes with him. What I love about your videos is that you don't hide anything. You don't edit because you want people to see all the tics and everything that comes along with you being on camera and just your life in general. I think that's one of the powerful things is that they're very raw, which there's a connection there, but anyone who's watching who also deals with that sees that and they can see like, hey, she's out there. She's putting herself out there. I can do this too, or maybe I can do this too. For those listening who maybe aren't as familiar with Tourette's and some of the different things, could you just share for just a minute, like the sort of some of the different tics that that people can have, like how they vary, but then also the ones that are really prevalent for you, the ones that are most likely to hit you on most days?
Yeah, definitely. So most people listening probably know Tourette syndrome unless they've listened to me talk or know somebody of Tourette syndrome who has Tourette's. They know it as the swearing disease or the swearing disorder because that's the easiest joke to make within Hollywood, within everything. And, you have to let it roll off your back because you have to accept like people are going to make jokes about it. But the problem is people start thinking that that's all this is. And when in reality, only 10% of people have that swearing part of Tourette syndrome, which is called copralia. And I don't say that to downplay what it is. And I always want to make a point of that because so many people are quick to say, well, it's only 10% of us. But then I don't want to leave that 10% out because it's very, very real for those 10%. Those people swearing and everything else, saying these words uncontrollably when they're a child or even as an adult, they think it's funny in the movies. But then when you're in a grocery store, you're in the movie theater, they're the first people that want you kicked out and they don't want you around their children or they don't want you in public. And it's hard. I've seen people talk about their experiences with this. I've seen people record when they're in these experiences of somebody not believing them or just saying, I don't care, and getting managers and stuff involved. And it's heartbreaking to me. And I can't imagine that because I do not swear. I have a couple of very, very small vocal tics that probably only my mom and dad and Scott have heard me do. I grunt sometimes when I tic with my stomach. So I tic with my stomach muscles. That's the first tic that I've ever noticed for the first time. And I grunt when I do it. It's evolved into a grunt when I do it. So my tics can start out simple, where I tic with like my fingers, or I tic with my feet, or I tic with my stomach. And then eventually I'm ticking with my stomach and my shoulder. I'm pushing my shoulders forward at the same time. And I'm literally doing it right now because I'm thinking about it. But they get more and more complex, or they can get complex. So there's simple and complex tics. Like, so a simple tic could be like, I'm blinking my eyes or rolling my eyes back. Blinking your eyes and actually rolling your eyes back is a tic that a lot of people with Tourette syndrome have. There's a lot of eye tics, and that's actually one of the first ones that a lot of people notice. So there's eye tics, sniffing, and like clearing your throat. That's a lot of tics that you'll find a lot of people with Tourette syndrome share. We all still do it in different ways. We're never like exactly the same. However, we can pick up on each other's tics because it can be a trigger. So people can have those tics. When I was younger, one Christmas Eve, I was so excited because I love Christmas so much. I would jump, like straddle jump, because I was a dancer all night on Christmas Eve. Like I couldn't stop. I went out to the car and my mom said, and I don't remember this, but I remember the jumping. My mom said I did it out in the driveway and my shoe just like flung off across the driveway. And so that was one that I'm very thankful it has never come back, because I can get tics that I haven't done in years, or I could get a new tic in 5 minutes. But for me personally, my biggest tics are my stomach tics with my shoulder. I have a tapping tic where that's made me do so many things, like on my phone. I've accidentally answered like one-word surveys because I continuously tap my fingers. I've like friend requested people on accident. It's a problem. I dislike that one. But and then my other most prevalent one is kicking the floor. So whenever I walk, I'm using my feet, so it's a trigger. My feet instantly think that I need to kick the floor, and it can be literally, if I'm on a walk outside, every single step I'm kicking the floor like really quick, 2 in a row. Then I have to do it with the other foot, and then I have to do it with the other foot, and it's just this domino effect, and that's how it is for a lot of people with Tourette syndrome. But I can tick from literally any part of my body. It can be ticking, and they could all be ticking at the same time if it's a bad enough day. And it can change from minute to minute to hour, day to day.
I appreciate you sharing so much of that, because I think it's just important for people to understand how varying it can be, and how just thinking through and listen to that, how it can compound and become such an overbearing thing in your life that you have to deal with and learn how to cope with. So I appreciate that. I want to talk to you on this one. This is one of my favorite questions, talking about failure and the lessons we learned from it. So can you tell us a story about the time you've had a failure in your life, how you overcame that, and then what you take away from the experience of going through that?
Yeah, for sure. I have failed plenty of times in my life. I would say that one of the times that I look back on that I saw that was kind of like a failure, but not, because I am a believer that everything happens for a reason. One of my thing was the beginning of college for me, and just college as a whole. It was very difficult for me. As decent as I was with school, I just didn't enjoy college. So right after high school, my first plan was I was going to go to Akron University, and I was going to major in journalism and minor in dance. I danced for a really long time. It was 15 years at the point of graduating high school. I went and I applied, like I did the dance audition and everything. I did not do well at the dance audition, and that I don't think helped me. It made me feel really bad about myself and second guess what I wanted to do. I got into the dance program, but I was in very low classes, and I was going to do the journalism thing because I wanted to write, and I was in journalism in high school, and it piqued my interest. But not only did I not go to Akron, I ended up not going to college at all that year. I decided that I needed a year off just to relax and not stress out. And I felt like a failure because all my friends were in college, whether it was just a community college or they went to Akron, they were living in dorms, like all this stuff. And I was a year behind all of them when I spent most of my life excelling at school and doing really, really well in school. And all of a sudden I decided that I just couldn't do it. So I failed at my attempt to go to college. I failed at my attempt to not live with my parents because that was also reasoning. I'm very, very close to my parents, and I guarantee you that I probably would have cried the whole first week I was at college because I missed my mom and dad. But so I did. I felt like a failure, but I still went back to school. I went to Kent, Trumbull, and I went for an English major. And so again, my goal, I was graduating in 4 years. I didn't care. I was getting it done. I was going to do whatever it took. And I ended up overloading myself. I have all these big goals, but then life gets in the way. I was on the highest dose of medication I had ever been on for my Tourette syndrome. I was only ever on medication my senior year of high school and in college. And I continuously had to keep upping it. And I had to stop. I was failing at this overachieving mindset that I always have for myself. And I was just taking on too much. And I was at the most stressed and overwhelmed that I could ever be. And it ended up taking me 2 more years. I ended up having to start going to school part-time rather than over full-time because I was also working at the same time. And that for me was a big gut punch because I wanted to be done in those 4 years, especially because I took that year off and it just didn't happen.
You know, Britney, I always love hearing your story. Every single time we get to talk, I learn something new about you, and I just learn more about the work you do. And one thing we actually haven't touched on yet is the work that you do to support educators. And I know that you touched on that you do work with the Teach Better Speakers Network, which is so incredible. We're so lucky to have you. But the first time you and I really interacted was when we were talking about you speaking at the first Teach Better conference in 2019. And you were going to share on kind of your experience with educators, your experience in the classroom, being a learner, suffering through teachers that didn't understand what you were going through and, you know, trying to support you in ways that weren't effective or maybe were effective. And so when I'm thinking about kind of like what's exciting you about education, I think I do want to know in our current state, I know it's been a hell of a year, right? In 2020, what is exciting right now about the work you're doing and its relationship to what's going on in education?
So I am so excited, for one, to have the opportunity to be a part of the Teach Better Speakers Network. It's a dream come true for me. I've always told my husband and my mom and dad that, like, if I could just go and just talk to people about Tourette syndrome and help people along the way, like, that's a dream come true for me. So it's literally my dreams coming true by speaking at these conferences and people wanting to hear what I have to say, even if it's just a couple people in the room. It is a dream come true. I've always said if just one person connects to something and I help one person, then I did what I wanted to do. But for teachers, this is just, it's such a huge opportunity that I would never even be able to allow myself to deny, because I'm getting to be in front of teachers and show them my life with Tourette syndrome and show them how they can connect with these students that have these, I don't like using the word disabilities, and it's only because there's stigmas with it. I think people think that hear disability and don't hear ability. And so that's the only reason I don't like using that word, but it is what it is. I have a disability and it can be hidden in the classroom. If I'm not ticking a lot in the classroom because I'm concentrated, or I'm concentrating so hard and trying to tick in other ways where the teacher can't see me or my classmates can't see me because, you know, you're nervous about them making fun of you, or you're nervous about the teacher not believing you or kicking you out of the classroom. And there are kids getting kicked out of the classroom all over the place. There's teachers that aren't understanding. And now that we're in this new world of virtual learning, it's putting this even more immense stress on these kids and having to put themselves on video, and then it being harder for them to hide their tics on video. So now I get to be in front of or talk to these teachers and tell them ways to connect to their students or ways to find out about those hidden struggles. Because somebody with anxiety, or maybe even ADD or ADHD, or even autism and then Tourette syndrome, there are these struggles that a kid is having in the classroom, and the teacher might not realize it. It might just look like they're not paying attention, that they're just like shaking their leg or something, or they're doodling, but really they're doodling because that's what's concentrating them and like grounding them. It's not that they're not listening to the teacher, but they have so much going on internally in their heads and they're too afraid to say it. And finding that connection with your students, like that's what I'm preaching the most, I guess you could say, is finding that connection so the student not only feels comfortable to tell you, but then you and that student can work on what works best for them. Maybe they want to tell the whole class. Maybe they would like you to talk about it somehow to the class, or maybe they just want that to be a thing between you two. But once you open up that door to that student struggling, and it doesn't even have to be, it could be a crack of the door. It's going to mean so much to that student. And that's what excites me. And we're in this world now where I think mental health is starting to get a bit more of a spotlight. And not that Tourette syndrome is necessarily mental health, but anxiety comes with it. People get depression with it and all these things. So I think teachers are really starting to look into that further. And that's what excites me. And it excites me to share my story and what helped me and what meant the most to me from the teachers that helped me, because it was simple as asking, what can I do to help you? And that's all it took. Like, I remember that teacher and that conversation, and I will remember it for the rest of my life. And I just want to create those moments for those student and teachers relationships even more. I want that what can I do for you moment for that student that's suffering.
Well, and I want to take that to even be even more tangible, right? So you're all listening to Britney's beautiful story, and she's really just saying that students want to be heard, they want to be seen, they want to be understood. Britney, if you had to give us like a tangible piece of advice, something that maybe, even if you're listening to this in the car, or maybe you're getting ready for the day or just winding down, like something you can literally go do in the classroom sometime soon to connect with your students, what would be your piece of advice that you'd want to give a new teacher or a veteran teacher just to help them be more successful?
Yeah. So what I'll do is, and this might have been easier I'll just give what my teacher did for me, and he didn't even realize he was doing it. And it might have been easier for him because he was an English teacher, but I do believe that there's ways for other teachers to do it to get to know their students, especially like at the beginning of the year, or I think even like at the beginning of every grading period, you do something to check in with your students. So my teacher, he did journal entries every once in a while on Fridays. Now I love to write, so journal entries were my favorite day. I would be there writing until the bell rang in my journal. And he gave us the option to tell him about ourselves or tell him about a moment that meant a lot to us, or just whatever subject we wanted to write about. So I wrote about Tourette Syndrome. I wrote about the first day that I remember ticking. Like I was very conscious of ticking. And at this point, I was in 10th grade, so my sophomore year, and a lot of my classmates, they already knew I had Tourette Syndrome because I made it very clear to everybody. And he wrote in my journal entry as well, telling me, like, thanking me for sharing that with them. But he also brought my mom in and asked me and my mom what he could do more, like what he needed to know about me and about my Tourette syndrome. And he created that moment for me, that lifelong memory, just by letting me write about what I wanted to tell him about myself. So I know that's probably easier for literature teachers or language arts, reading, what have you. But even if it's just like, I think it could be like a Post-it note that you like, tell me one thing about you that I don't know. You put it on a Post-it note and you collect it like at the beginning of every first 9 weeks or something. Or tell me if, like, give a safe space. Like once you put it on this Post-it note, this is your struggle that you're having. Let me know how you're doing today, or just something like that, because it's just so simple and it just means so much, especially to that student that's dying to tell you something. But you don't know what that opportunity is. You don't know when to tell your teacher, because sometimes it feels like, all right, well, I didn't tell him right away, so now why am I going to tell him out of nowhere? And so then you just get more scared to tell him or her. So stuff like that, little things.
I love that advice, but I always love your advice to teachers and stuff. And I think that's one of the reasons we latched on to you so quickly, is because you have this perspective that just, I think, opens up just these ideas of how can I give them that safe space? How can I give them those opportunities to tell me about something about themselves that they were afraid to tell before? Because, as you get through, and you mentioned it doesn't, you don't have to do it at the beginning of the year, do it all the time, because a student gets to know you better. They start being a little more comfortable. Now they may actually open up, and you have this opportunity to connect and create that moment that I've heard you talk about so many times. And the impact that teacher had on you is just incredible. So, great advice. I love that. We're going to do the next 6 questions, Brittany. Your goal is to answer each one in 15 seconds or less. Are you good with that?
Sure.
All right. What is one technology tool that you cannot live without?
Probably my phone. I hate saying it, but I can't live without it.
Hey, I'm right there with you. What is give us a book that you're reading right now?
I'm actually I just started reading Didn't See That Coming by Rachel Hollis. And it's
good.
It's very good. I picked it up because, as I know Jeff knows, I lost my grandfather a couple months ago, and it's been very difficult for me. And I picked up that book at Target. And I'm like, I have to get this. It's speaking to my soul.
Well, you just totally won Ray over again with that whole thing.
Yeah, as if she hadn't already. I mean, she talked about dancing. I'm a Britney Wolf fan. I don't even care that she's in a Team Jeff shirt. I don't even care.
All right. Who do we need to follow on Twitter or Instagram today? You can give us up to 3.
Okay, so you guys already interviewed him, and I listened to the podcast. It was great. Brad Cohen, 100%.
Yes, Brad, yes.
On all of the platforms, he is just the best. I would say Ben from Tourette Podcast. He is another really great podcaster and a really great just person with Tourette Syndrome. Him and I was on his very first season of his podcast, and he was my very first interview for my Tourette videos as well.
Nice.
He's doing some great work with that. And then also, of course, mine are all going to be Tourette based, but the Tourette Association of America, that could also be a very good group for teachers if they have students with Tourette syndrome to find out more about the disorder. They are a great organization.
Give us a good YouTube channel, website, or podcast that you think educators should check out.
YouTube channel or podcast. Our website. Oh man, I would say the same. Like I would say Brad Cohen's website and Brad Cohen's his social media handles and stuff and everything that he does because he is a vice principal, I believe, of a school that has Tourette syndrome. And then I think he's a wealth of knowledge. So I would say him again.
He is front of the class, I think, on everything. So
yeah.
All right, give us a daily, weekly, or monthly routine you think every teacher should get into.
Oh boy. And I'm saying this from the outside in because I'm not a teacher, but I would say, and I'm only saying this because I'm friends with a lot of teachers, especially now, is finding that time for yourself, even if it's 5 minutes, because I can't even imagine right now what teachers are going through and how hard it is to find that time for themselves. So even if it's a 5-minute cup of coffee or something, I think that's super important. I'm also learning that myself, is to get back into finding time for the things I enjoy outside of Tourette related things.
And give us the best piece of advice you've ever received.
Okay, so the best piece of advice, this is something that I actually heard at work. It was one of our town hall meetings, and it was said to go towards the fire. And it really resonated with me because it's so easy to turn and run when something gets hard and you say, I'm going to do that later. But I try to remind myself of that, like, no, Brittany, like, go towards it. You're not only going to learn by doing it. And I really feel like that has helped me at work. It's helped me in my personal life. Like, don't run away just because it gets hard. Go towards that fire and see what you can do to like extinguish it.
What do you think, Ray?
It doesn't get better than that. Literally, it doesn't get better than that. Brittany, I'm going to have Jeff, when he picks up his t-shirt later that he dropped off at your house, I'm going to have him drop off the Teach Better trophy. That way you can put that like very proudly in your office and just enjoy. I know that you have a Christmas tree up right now. Maybe you could put that like right next to the Christmas tree. I think that would be cute.
I need a topper for it. I'll just pop it right on top.
Use the Teach Better Talk podcast trophy as the topper of your Christmas tree. That sounds like it needs to be in the swag store, Jeff Gargas.
I agree.
Teach Better Christmas tree topper. I'll look into that.
Or ornaments even.
Ornaments. There you go. We have options.
Brittany, I'm here for your Christmas needs.
There we go. There we go. You have some great traditions that you were sharing before we actually went live. Yeah. So I believe it. I actually want to be invited next year when you guys put the Christmas tree up, because it sounds like your traditions would really align with what I enjoy too.
Yeah. As long as you're ready to hear me sing awful.
I really want the waffles is really what I wanted.
He does make pretty good waffles. I have to give him that.
I believe it. Well, Brittany, I do want to make sure our listeners can stay connected to you. Obviously, you've shared so much in this podcast, but you also continue to share so much with everyone, including teachers, to just continue to be educated and support others and care for others. So would you mind sharing how everyone can stay connected?
Yeah, definitely. So you can find me on Twitter, which is at one tick at a time, and that's TIC as in cat. I'm not on Twitter a lot. I should be on it more, but I'll be honest, I have a hard time understanding Twitter. So I don't post a lot on that, but you can also find me on Instagram, which is just @_ Britney Wolf. And then I have a Facebook page where you can find me at one tick at a time. So facebook.com/one tick at a time. And then my YouTube channel is just youtube.com/Britney Wolf.
And you can find all the links, all the resources, everything we mentioned in this episode over at teachbetter.com, as well as the really important links for connecting with Brittany and keeping the conversation going. So head over to teachbetter.com for the show notes for all of that. Be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. And if you can give us a rating and a review, we'd really appreciate that as well. And let's keep taking this one step further. Think of just 3 of your colleagues who need to hear these amazing stories and connect with these amazing people. And just share this podcast with them. Brittany, I loved having you on. So happy that we finally got there after 220-something episodes. I love the work you're doing. I love the fact that we get to be a part of it and work with you, and just really appreciate you taking some time and hanging out with us tonight.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you guys having me, and you have no idea what it means to me for me to be part of your speakers network and you guys to believe in my message and what I'm trying to get across to as many people as I can.
Well, we appreciate it, and we're excited to continue sharing that. And until next time, let's get out there and let's teach better.